Hi, I'm John Cash, and welcome to your daily devotional. I want to take a look at James chapter 1, verse 5 through 8. It says, If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord. He is double-minded, unstable in all that he does. It's a wonderful promise, and it starts off with verse 5, which says, hey, if you lack wisdom, God's going to give it to you generously without finding fault. In some translations, it will say he will give it to you liberally. And what this means is that God is not going to look at your level of spiritual maturity and say, okay, I'll give you wisdom because you're this mature. And he won't even look at your level of obedience before granting you wisdom if you ask in faith, because he wants people to have wisdom, because wisdom begins to lead us closer to the Lord and begins to build our faith and that kind of thing. So if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously, and God does give generously to his children. And we should seek wisdom, God's wisdom, because God's wisdom is the bridge that moves us from this world into the other world. Understanding who God is, and of course, having the faith to build that bridge to the other side. And then in verse 6, it says, But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt. And folks, this is key for anybody. And that is, if you want God to answer your prayer, you must ask that prayer in faith. The Bible says it is impossible to please God without faith. And then it says, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. And what it's saying there is if you are doubting and if your faith is weak, what that is like being in a boat, or maybe not even in a boat, out on the sea with the waves just crashing all over you. Let me ask you something. Do you have any control if you are in the middle of a storm and you're in a boat? Can you row yourself to shore? No. You're stuck out there, and the waves are going to send you pretty much where they want to. You're stuck out there with no boat, and those waves are going to be crashing all over you, and you're going to really question if you are even going to make it through. There is complete chaos going on in that situation. And there's so many today that do sit in church every Sunday, but they have a complete chaotic life. And the reason there is such chaos is because they're doubting. They don't have that faith like a little child, which is what pleases God. So when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. And then it goes on. It says, the man who doesn't have the faith, should not think he will receive anything from the Lord. And that's about as blunt as it gets. If you want to receive things from the Lord, if you want God to answer your prayer, and it doesn't matter if it's a prayer for wisdom or any other prayer, it is contingent on you believing that he can do it. And belief does not come from the mind. Wisdom goes into the mind. It conforms our mind. But faith comes from the heart. That man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord. And then it says, he is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So the question is, are you a single-minded person or are you a double-minded person? Double-minded person, best way to describe that, is a person that is waffling spiritually. 1 foot in heaven and 1 foot here in the earth. One day, act like a Christian. The next day, not acting like a Christian. And the Bible says that if you're double-minded and you're unstable on your ways, God is not going to answer your prayer. And so what we need to do is be single-minded, meaning focused. And that is the key. Focused on God. Focused on heaven. Focused on what he wants us to do. And having the wisdom to understand what he wants us to do. And the faith to simply do it. That's when He's empowering you, when you have that faith, and the wisdom will guide you.